Alright, here's a demonstration of how to create your database for the tasks for the case study this week. So the first thing you need to do is open up Microsoft Access. This is an Access 2013, so if you're using an older version, it's going to look a little different. But once you've saved your database, it's going to open it up with a single table object, right, called Table 1, and it's going to load you up with a single field called ID. And we're going to change both of those. So the first thing you want to do is just go ahead and save the table and give it a new name. So click the disk in the top left corner. We're going to call this TBL Teachers, or I am. You're going to rename yours based on the requirements for the project. But after you save the table, it's going to require you to enter a new table name. And when you do that, you'll notice that it updates here and over here in your nav bar. All right. I think it's easier to define fields in Design View. So click on the View button. You're currently in Datasheet View. Switch to Design View. And this is what you have here. Notice that the key icon is present, indicating that this ID field is currently the primary key. We're going to update this as well. We're going to rename this Teacher ID in this example. And again, you're going to need to change this based on the requirements for the two tables that you're creating for your case study, but you can model it after this. You'll just have different table names and field names. This is going to be Teacher ID. I'm going to set the data type for all of my fields to short text just to keep it simple. And I'm going to describe this as the primary key because it is. The tab key will move me down to each of my new fields to populate. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the different fields that I want to have to populate the records in this table. And of course, yours possibly would be different than this, maybe not. There are a lot of similarities. So this is first name, we'll leave it as short text. Last name, short text. Address, city, state, and zip. Alright, of course there's a lot more that you can do here in terms of setting field properties and defining more appropriate data types, but for the example or for the case study for this week, we're not going to get into that. When I'm not teaching you how to use Access, I'm just going to give you the bare bones that you need to create your two tables and populate them with records. Alright, so you currently have one table, Table Teachers, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fields. Okay, so if I change back to Datasheet View, save my table, you're going to see each of your field names present up here. You can also click to add field names in the datasheet. I just find it easier to manipulate them in Design View. You can also change from Datasheet to Design View down here, clicking on these two icons. All right. Let's go ahead while we're here and load up our record data. Let me get there. So, Table Teachers. Teacher ID, right? Primary key. This is where I'm asking you to make up your own codes. I've, of course, made mine up, and I'm just replicating the example that I showed you in class. So, female 13 is going to be Mr. Brian Miller. Of course, tab, again, is going to jump you over to the different fields and allow you to populate them. I'm going to be G-Boy 15. Can't type today. Cool Town Road. And Robin is R. Lil 16. Alright, so I have three complete records here. 1, 2, 3. Notice that the address field doesn't fully accommodate the text here. If that bothers you, this works just like Excel. You can double click on the line between the two different field columns to auto-fit the contents. That should be the only one that gives you problems. All right, so we've got 3 records present. I've got all of my fields defined with appropriate naming technique. I've included my codes to identify these 3 records, so I'm good to go here. I'm going to save my work and close the table. All right, I'm going to go to Create and create another table. All right, again, it opens it up in the data sheet. I'm going to go ahead and save it. This one's going to be TBL Classes. And I'm going to switch to Design View to model my fields. Okay. Let's see. What fields do I need here? Primary key is going to be Class ID. Short text. I'm going to describe this as the primary key if it wasn't already apparent. All right, my next field is going to be the Teacher ID field that I'm going to pull over from the table Teachers, and that's going to be the foreign key in this table that's going to allow us to define the relationship that we're going to do next. Remember, that's the power of a relational database, and that's what gets us to that third normal form that we're working toward when we talk about normalizing table design. Class name, description, building location, classroom size, and, oh, no, that's wrong too. Classroom location, and max size. All right, so you see you've got a lot of editing power over here. If you make a typo, just fix it. Data type to short text, and I've defined my primary key, which is also set here. If it wasn't, I would need to activate that here. And then I've identified the foreign key as Teacher ID. All right, I'm going to switch to the data sheet, save my work, and populate my records. So, Art 220. G-Boy is teaching this. Class name is Watercolors. Building location is Smiley 218. Max size is 15. Remember that you have to have a minimum of 3 records in each of your tables. That's the base requirement. If you want to go above and beyond the Call of Duty, that's cool. It's encouraged. Give you more practice. Dimbo 123, 18 people there. MUS 110. RLL 16 is teaching that. Music appreciation. And religion. That's a tough one for me to be teaching. Bates 104, max size 24 students. All right. And again, if I wanted to resize to auto fit, I can do that. But I now have my table classes. I've got my field names identified, or my fields defined, and I've included 1, 2, 3, 4 records here. So I can save that, and I can close it. So I currently have, as you can see here, 2 tables, which is the minimum. All right. If I open up these tables, notice that I have a minimum of 5 fields defined for each. All right, notice that I have codes present in the primary keys for both. And all of those codes I made up myself. All right, and within each of these tables, I have a minimum of 3 records. Those are the base requirements for the project this week. So be aware of that before you get started. The last thing you need to do is define that relationship, which again is the power of a relational database. So to do that, go ahead and close your table objects. You're going to click on the Database Tools tab. And in this Relationships group, click on Relationships. Alright, if for some reason this doesn't show up, you can always make it come back by clicking this Show Table button. And we want to add both of these tables. So add and add. Alright, and then close this. You can move these around in the Relationships window if you want to. Whatever you want to do. You can resize them to accommodate all the fields if that bothers you. Alright, and it's as easy as a drag and drop. So remember that in this case we're defining a one-to-many relationship between the teacher table and the class table. Only one teacher should be present in this, every teacher in the teacher's table is distinctive, okay? There should be no duplication there. They are unique because they're people. Okay, so that should always be the one relationship because there's only ever one Jenny Boyer, or at least this Jenny Boyer. But I, Jenny Boyer, can teach many classes, okay? So my teacher ID can be duplicated here many times. It cannot be duplicated here because it has to be distinctive to my record entry in this table, okay? So this is the one relationship. This is going to be the many relationship over here. So we're going to click over teacher ID and drag and drop it over the teacher ID in the tables in the table classes. All right, you're going to get this Edit Relationships window come up. You should see your tables represented here, and it should have adequately identified the field that we're matching. Go ahead and click to Enforce Referential Integrity and Cascade Updates, meaning if you make an update in either of these tables based on this matched field, it's going to cascade or push those updates to the table it's related to. Again, that's really good for data integrity and for enforcing just good data practice in your overall table design. Notice that your relationship type should already be identified here as a one-to-many. So click Create. You'll see that relationship defined. Okay, the one should be beside the teacher ID field, and the many relationship should be tied to the foreign key here in the table classes. All right, save, and then close. Now if I were to open up the teacher's table, notice that I've got a little plus sign beside each of my records that indicates a relationship. If I were to maximize any of these, you've got a sub data sheet here that identifies the records that my teacher ID is tied to in that related class table. Okay. If I were to close this and open up the table classes, and let's say that we made a switch and Robin is going to teach Intro to Religion, RLIL 16. When I save that, remember that Cascade Updates should push that to the teacher's table. So if I close this and open up the teacher's table, when I look at my classes, now I'm only teaching watercolors. But if I look at Robin's classes, she's now teaching music and religion. Okay, so you kind of see how that relationship works and how that Cascade Update works as well. All right, that's the bare bones of what you need this week. And I hope this tutorial has been helpful. If you have any questions, ask. Okay, remember to take screenshots of each of your data sheets for your two tables and for your relationships window. Okay, but in addition to that, when you finish doing this, go ahead and submit this database file, this access file in Blackboard as well. It's in the week 9 folder. All right? All right. Over and out.